going to introduce Mike and the topic that he's going to discuss this evening. And that's on our website before. It's called 4 Power Questions to Ask an Evolutionist. And as you'll see, evolutionists are incapable of providing coherent, logical answers to those 4 questions that you see on the screen there. And Mike has given this talk a number of times, and it's very popular on evolution that our children are taught in public school. This critical thinking to really come to an answer to those questions. Mike has been speaking on creation versus evolution topics for more than 35 years, so versed in that. He's special in education. He led the education training in Microsoft and Sprint, those 2 companies, for a long time, and now he's applying what he's learned there to training in the and education in the creation evolution controversy. Mike and his wife Leslie live in Boise, Idaho, and he's also worked for ICR and AIG, so he knows this field very well. So we look forward to hearing what Mike has to say and how he would answer those specific questions. Mike, come on up.
Thank you. After all that introduction, you're probably thinking, how much older than 80 years old? Looks like I've done a lot of things. Anyway, it's a privilege to be back here again. I was here in April and had a good time. Got fed well, so I decided I'm going to come back and get fed well again. And it's happening. That's the benefit of what I do. And I got a great minister. You get to travel most places for free and get fed well. That's a pretty good job, isn't it? Anyway, 4 power questions to ask an evolutionist. Start here. The origin of the universe, the origin of life, origin of dinosaurs, and a power question. That's how we're going to end this, a real power question. Is evolution a fact or a theory? Well, let's take a look at a biology textbook. They can't be wrong. Many people review these books. Today, nearly all biologists acknowledge that evolution is a fact. Now, what I'm showing you is what our children come up against. And if you can't refute that statement, then you're probably going to lose your children. National Academy of Sciences. Is evolution a theory or fact? It is both. National Center for Science Education. An observation that has been repeatedly confirmed for all practical purposes is accepted as true. That's their definition of a fact. Notice the word observed. That's very important here for being a fact and a theory. The National Academy of Sciences. What is a theory? In science, a well-substantiated explanation of some aspect of the natural world that can incorporate facts, laws, inferences, and tested hypotheses. Well substantiated. Well, the evolutionists have done a pretty good job of substantiating what they believe, haven't they? Matter of fact, they've completely outdone the church, haven't they? In our situation today, the world has completely out-educated the church, which is a terrible situation we've gotten ourselves into. So let's get to power question 1. Where did the matter come from to create the universe? Why is that so important? Well, let's take a look at this. Here's the answer. The Big Bang. 13 to 15 billion years ago, something exploded, and from that explosion came all the stars, all the galaxies, all the planets, and you. Does that make you feel good about yourself? You're a product of an explosion. Does that answer the question, where did the matter come from? No, it did not. Because we have to have the matter there before we can have a Big Bang. In other words, you have to have something there before you can have something go bang. So that is not an answer. That is called avoiding the question. Paul Davies, physicist and evolutionist, writes this in his book, The Edge of Infinity. The Big Bang represents the instantaneous suspension of physical laws. The sudden, abrupt flash of lawlessness that allowed something to come out of nothing represents, what are those words he uses? A true miracle. Now, here's something that separates what he just said and what we believe in Jesus Christ. They have a faith, they have miracles, but no miracle maker. We have a miracle called God who's provided the miracles for us. So they have miracles with no miracle maker. We have miracles with a miracle maker. Who's got the more logical faith there? The Christians do. So what he just said there is not an answer. Where did the matter come to create the Big Bang? He's just saying it's a miracle. I'd like to know who his miracle maker is. Here's another, a reporter. Scientists may have solved mystery of matter's origin, 2015, out of the Washington Post, one of those great Christian journals, isn't it? No, not hardly. And here's what she has to say about where the matter came from. The conditions of the early universe were biased towards creating something out of nothing. Folks, that's something you find in fairy tale movies right there. That doesn't warrant anything scientifically. That is not an answer. Here's another one. Senior astronomer for SETI Institute, the search for extraterrestrial life. In the very weird world of quantum mechanics, which describes action on a subatomic scale, random fluctuations can produce matter and energy out of nothingness. That is one of their typical answers. Things just pop into existence and very rapidly pop out of existence. No, they don't. No, they don't. That's not science at all. You see, in order to pop into existence, it requires energy. We're starting with nothing, which includes no energy, no mass, no space. So that nullifies that whole statement there. Here's Joseph Silk, PhD in astronomy. Now, Joseph Silk read his book called The Big Bang. He's an evolutionist, but he gives a very honest answer here. It's only fair to say we still have a theory without a beginning. That is a very honest answer. Too bad our educators can't use that explanation. So the origin of matter. Genesis 1:1 gives us the answer. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We see also in Colossians 1:16, for by him all things were created that are in heaven, that are in earth, visible and invisible. That includes all things there, doesn't it? Because visible and invisible qualifies the word all as meaning all things. So the Bible is very clear. God created all things, and that does not violate any known laws of science. Because the laws of science only govern the material universe. So if God created the universe, then who created God? Well, we have to cover this one, don't we? Be fair about it. Because that is a very legitimate question or challenge from the atheist. And we should not draw back. We should know how to answer that question. So who made God? Well, here's what the Bible says. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am, right, of Exodus 3:14. Then in Revelations 22, verse 13, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. What are the verses telling us? God is a self-existing being, no beginning and no end. And again, that does not violate any laws of science. Because again, the laws of science govern the material universe, not the non-material. So, where did God come from? Where did the universe come from? Well, there's only three options, folks. Where did everything come from? Either the universe created itself, the universe has always existed, or it had to be created. Those are the only three options. In all the years I've been doing this, no one's given me a third choice or fourth choice. Oh, wait a minute, Mike. We came from aliens, outer space somewhere. Folks, that doesn't answer the question. Oh, there's multiple universes. You know how much evidence there is for that, folks? I'm going to give you this in two languages. Zero and nada. This whole idea of multiple universe is nothing but science fiction. They've been watching too much Star Trek. There's no evidence for that. Zero. Don't fall into that trap of multiple universes. That still doesn't explain where the matter came from. So let's look at the first one. Did the universe create itself? In other words, what I'm going to use is a tactic here. And the tactic is now asking the questions. How did the universe get here? There's only three options. If we can rule out the first two, what option did that leave us? Only the third one. Pretty good there. I like that. We got some mathematicians up here. How much is 3 take away 2. My typical one is you got 7 apples on the table. You take 3 apples. How many apples do you have? No, 3, because you only took 3. Yes. Wait till I get to the table with the books. I have great sales on today. 1 for the price of 2. And if you buy 2 of them, you get the 3rd one at the regular price. Isn't double talk great? Anyway, did the universe create itself? Let's ask this question. Can something create itself? Can you create yourself? Can anything we know of create itself? Well, the answer is no. Then for the universe to create itself, there has to be a cause. What was the cause? Because there can be no energy out there. We're talking nothing out there. 0. No energy, no mass. So what would be the cause? You can't have a cause unless there's some energy out there, folks. And here's a good one they don't think about. Where did the space come from to pop yourself into existence? That can't exist either. So how in the world can something create itself when there's no space, no mass, no energy, nothing? It can't do it unless you just don't want to believe in the laws of science. As a Christian and a creationist, I tend to believe in the laws of science. I don't have to work about getting around them. We don't need to ignore them. And here's a great statement. Out of nothing comes what? Nothing. So we can rule number 1 out. The universe simply could not create itself unless we just want to abandon the laws of science. So that one's gone. How about this one? The universe has always existed. Again, we're looking at who created God. And to get to that answer, we've got to, first of all, show that evolution is not possible here. Did the universe, has it always existed? Well, we've got to bring up one of those big words. Is that okay to bring up a big word? Thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics. Well, what does thermo mean? Heat. What we're talking about here is heat energy. Be very careful of the explanations or definitions you see in textbooks because they're not quite accurate. For instance, you'll see we're going from order to disorder. Well, that's not 100% accurate, folks, because there are instances where we can go from disorder to greater order. So we have to be very careful with our definitions. This deals with heat energy. So I'm going to do a little explanation here of the second law, give kind of a description here. And I'm going to use an example called no refills. You're given a new car. Matter of fact, you can have any one of these cars. Anybody want one of those cars up there? Those are pretty nice looking cars. In good condition, they'd be worth a lot of money, wouldn't they? Okay, you want one of those cars. And it's free. And everything for the lifetime of this car is free. That's a pretty good deal, isn't it? If anything goes wrong, it's fixed for free. That's a good deal. But can you read the small print? No, you got to learn to read the small print. Small print says all you ever get is 1 tank of gas and there's no refills ever. That's what it says there. You got to read that small print. So if all you ever get is 1 tank of gas, you can never refill it, what happens after you've driven that vehicle about 300 miles? You're out of gasoline. In other words, you're out of energy to drive that vehicle. What can the vehicle do now? You can sit and look at it, you can polish it, and you take it apart and sell the parts, but it's not going to go on its own anymore because all the energy, all the available energy has been used up, and that energy can no longer be used to propel that car. That's the second law of thermodynamics. Energy goes from a state of usable energy to a state of less usable energy for doing work in an isolated system. That is an accurate definition. Now, let's go to outer space and apply this same law. Stars. Stars have a finite amount of energy. Now, what do stars do? Now, I'm only going to put this up there because I can pronounce it. Thermonuclear fusion. Wow. You must be smart. You can pronounce the words. Now, what is that? It's burning your lighter elements into heavier elements. That's what stars do. In other words, we start, what's the H there? Anybody, who are my chemists here? What's the H? Hydrogen. What does it burn into? Helium. Then eventually into carbon and oxygen. What's that last one? Iron. Right. And once it's burned up all its energy there, you know what stars do? A lot of them will just gravitationally collapse inward and just explode into a great big gas and dust cloud. So stars have a finite amount of energy. They're all burning that up, and eventually, given enough years, enough billions and billions and trillions of years, they'll all be gone. So also the universe is finite. There's nothing outside this universe we know of that's adding any energy into it. Now, if the universe had no beginning, which means it would be an infinite number of years old, that would mean all the energy in this universe has been used up. Has anybody seen anybody move around lately? Anybody seen any stars at night? They're still up there burning, aren't they? But if this universe was an infinite number of years old, meaning it had no beginning, it's always been there, all the stars would have burned up all their energy. Infinity, what does it mean? Time without end. Latin for boundless, unlimited extent of time. So let's look at this. The universe is constantly converting usable energy into less usable energy forms. After about 100 million years, all the supergiant stars would have burned up their energy because the big stars burn up their energy a little bit faster. After about 10 billion years, stars like our sun are supposed to have burned up all their energy. After about 100 billion years, most all the stars in the universe would have burned up their energy, and certainly after 1 trillion years, all the stars would be gone. But that can't be, because I look up there in nights, and every once in a while you can see them in Seattle, can't you? You see stars. That is powerful evidence this universe could not be eternal. Oh, but wait a minute, Mike. You forgot something very important here. New stars are forming all the time. That's what they teach out of our textbooks. That's what they teach our high school students. How does this happen? Well, let me go back to our textbooks. We get these great big gas and dust clouds called nebula. And these nebula rotate around and around and around. As they rotate around and around and around, they begin to gravitationally collapse inward and keep collapsing in until they form a new star. And there's a scientific technical term for that whole process. It is called baloney. Anybody that's gone to a Physics 101 textbook and read the chapter on heat pressure knows that's not going to happen. Yes, those clouds, those nebulae rotate around and around, and also due to the rotation, they will begin gravitationally collapsing inward. But as they do so, they generate heat pressure. And we can measure these things. The heat pressure is always stronger than the gravity and always causes that cloud to expand outward. In other words, folks, no one has ever seen a new star form. It's not observable. It can't be a fact, and it can't be a theory. It's only conjecture. But it's certainly not based on known science. But they don't teach that in our school textbooks. Why? Because they're more interested in teaching evolution than good science anymore. This is what our youth are up against. Don DeYoung, PhD in physics. The complete birth of a star has never been observed. Jason Lau, PhD, astrophysics. Star formation has never been observed, nor could it truly be observed, since the process is supposed to take hundreds of thousands of years. Gas in space is very resistant to being compressed into a star. Compression of gas causes an increase in magnetic field strength, gas pressure, and angular momentum. All three of those will cause that cloud to expand outward, folks, not inward. But that is ignored in our textbooks. You see, if you can't answer these questions, what's going to happen to your children? You're in danger of losing them to the world, because this will wear them down. So, conclusion, the universe cannot be infinite, no beginning, or simply be out of energy. So now we've ruled out number 1 and number 2. What does that leave us? A pretty good conclusion. The universe was created. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. See, the only scientific explanation we have is choice number 3 there, a creator God. Both the other ones fail both logic and science. So who made God now? Now we get down to that question. Who made God? Well, there's two possibilities, Mike. Yes. Some religions believe we have many, many gods, and we keep going in regression back to the powerful God, the more powerful, powerful God, the more powerful, powerful, powerful God, until you get back to the great, powerful God who created all the other gods. There are religions that believe that. Or there's one God who created everything. What's the answer? Well, we can invoke something called Occam's razor. When you have two possibilities, choose the one with the least theories and conjectures in there. And also, which one agrees with reality? And here's the one that agrees with reality. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, there's none else. I am God, and there's none like me. See, the Bible, of all the religions books out there, is the only one that really agrees with reality. It answers the hard questions like, who made me? What happens when I die? Why is there evil? It agrees with the laws of science. It agrees with history, the archaeology. So only the Bible is the accurate one that agrees with reality. So if scientists are unable to explain the origin of matter through naturalistic observational means, then evolution is without a foundation. In other words, evolution at this point is a matter of faith. Sounds like a movie. Why should I accept evolution when you cannot produce the evidence? I already have a faith. Tell me about your faith, and I'll tell you about my faith. Therefore, it's logical and reasonable to believe that God, not unknown magical events, created this universe. See, we have a logical and reasonable faith. It is not a blind faith, as we're taught. So, number 1. 1 to 0. Now let's look at the origin of life. Now, the origin of life is one of my favorite ones. Folks, we should never, ever, ever lose the origin of life argument. And you can teach this to junior hires. They will understand everything I'm going to say here. So when I'm done, you need to make sure you go out to all the junior hires you know and all the high school students you know in your churches and make sure they get this taught. Make sure every youth pastor you know knows how to do this, because it'll give them a lot of confidence and give those students a lot of confidence. So the origin of life, what do we got here? Only 2 possibilities. Life started by naturalistic processes or life was created. Don't get the idea we were seeded by aliens. That does not answer the question how life started. And folks, you know how much evidence there is for alien life outside this planet? 0. Absolutely 0, folks. We can't even find intelligent life in Washington, D.C. Sorry. So let's start here. Let's do a review. A little review of some biological terms. Because I look out there, it looks like some of you are old enough to have been on the biology classroom for a year or 2. So let's do a review. Atoms, what are they? Our basic unit of matter. Yes, there's subatomic particles in there, but the atoms are considered our basic unit of matter. Now, what do atoms like to do? Well, they like to get together to make molecules, such as water, H2O. That's the non-technical term, get together. The technical term is they bond. We're going to keep this simple. Now, what do molecules like to do? They like to get together or bond to make things sometimes called amino acids. Now, I did not say mean old acids. We know some people have those things too. But we're talking about amino acids here. Now, amino acids are going to be very important in this section. Why? Because they're considered to be the building blocks of life. If you can't get amino acids, you cannot get life. So they're going to be very important here. And then amino acids can bond together to make proteins. And that's all we need to do in this origin of life. Notice you don't have to talk about DNA, you don't have to talk about RNA, ribosomes, organelles, or any of those other things. Just talk about amino acids and proteins. That's all you need. So let's start here with a famous experiment called the Miller experiment. In the 1950s, Miller set out to create the building blocks of life in a laboratory. Now, notice his objective was not to create life, but to get the building blocks of life. So in his laboratory, he built this spark chamber. And in there, he tried to simulate the Earth's early atmosphere, what he thought it was like these alleged 3.5 billion years ago. So it put gases such as methane and ammonia in there. And he left oxygen out. Then he generated electrical sparks in there to drive the chemical reactions. Then it goes on to state that Miller did get amino acids. And folks, that is a fact. Miller did get amino acids. So now they can teach, why do we need a creator God when we can do it ourselves? That's what they're teaching. How about we do a little critical thinking? Are we allowed to do critical thinking here? Yes. You know why we can do critical thinking here? Because this is not California. Give it time. Yeah. Okay. Why did Miller use the gases he did? Why did he use methane and ammonia and leave oxygen out? Well, he left oxygen out because Miller is a very smart person. We're going to cover that. He knew he had to leave oxygen out. But methane and ammonia has since been debunked. What type of amino acids did Miller really get? See, the textbooks don't tell you that. They just say he got amino acids used in life. What were the real results? And I'm not even going to talk about the fact that he cheated. They just leave that out of the textbooks too. So let's start here. Dwayne Giss, PhD in biochemistry. Oxygen in the origin of life. Well, Miller left oxygen out because he knew that in the presence of oxygen, life cannot start. An atmosphere containing free oxygen would be fatal to all origin of life schemes. While oxygen is necessary for life, free oxygen would oxidize and thus destroy all organic molecules required for the origin of life. See, scientists know that. Miller knew that. So he had to leave oxygen out of his experiment. Miller was not dumb. He was a very smart man. So let's play along with this scenario. Let's take all the oxygen out of the atmosphere. You know what happens when we take all the oxygen out of the atmosphere? Right. Because what do we take away? The ozone. It's made out of what? O3, oxygen. And we take all that ozone away, we become instant what? Crispy critters. That's the technical term. Because the ultraviolet rays of that sun will come down and fry all life. Are you starting to get the idea, folks? Science does not support evolution, but it does support a creator God. But that's not what's being taught in the schools. So now what they tell us is life didn't start on the land. Life started way down deep in the oceans. So far down there, the sun's rays could not penetrate. That's how it happened. Well, how about a word called hydrolysis? Another one of those big words. Hydro means water. Hydrolysis literally means water splitting. As soon as any amino acids might have been formed in the oceans, within a matter of weeks or less, they would have all been destroyed. Because water just inserts itself in there and breaks the amino acid bonds. So, in other words, water is one of the worst places in the universe for life to begin, folks. Isn't that great? So life can't start on land, and it can't start on water. There's not many places left, are there? This is looking good. So let's look at this. We haven't talked about the amino acids yet, because Miller did get amino acids. That's a fact. But there's many, many types of amino acids, hundreds of different types of amino acids. But only 20 are used in life. That means life is very selective. Only 20. Now, something about these amino acids. They come in two shapes. Just like we have a left hand, we have a right hand. Are our left and right hand the same? Not quite. Because when I put one hand behind the other, notice the thumb and the fingers are on the opposite side, aren't they? Your left and right hand are what we call mirror images of each other. Now, the amino acids come in the same type of shapes or forms. Guess what we call them? Left-handed amino acids and right-handed amino acids. There are other technical terms for that. When you take your chemistry classes, you'll get the more technical terms, but generally what you hear is left and right-handed amino acids. What's the difference between them? Well, like our hands, they're made up of the same components of the same atoms. And also like our hands, they are mirror images of each other. Now, why is that so important to know? That's important to know because every single amino acid in every protein in your body, and you have trillions of these, is left-handed. You do not have a single right-handed amino acid in any protein in your body. It just gets better, folks. Every amino acid in every protein in all life forms is 100% left-handed. Now, why is that important? That becomes important because when we go back and look at the Miller experiment, what did he really end up with? An even mixture of left and right-handed amino acids, folks. That is a complete poison to life. That is as far away from life as you can get. Wow. Why didn't they put that in the textbooks? Because it's science, and they don't want science in the textbooks. They want evolutionism. Every experiment we've ever done always ends up with an even mixture of left and right-handed. Even when the scientists start with all left-handed amino acids, they will naturally revert back to a mixture of left and right-handedness. Otherwise, the natural tendency is always away from life, never towards it. So how could life ever get started? And it just keeps getting better, folks. This is an example of Romans, folks, that God has given us all the evidence. And we have no excuse. Nobody on this planet has an excuse for not believing in a creator. Because when we die, remember we're 100% left-handed amino acids. When we die and we become as dead as we can be, how dead will that be? Pretty dead, won't it? Dead. Okay, I like that. Dead squared. You know what happens to our 100% left-handed amino acids? They start reverting back to a mixture of left and right-handedness. What did Miller really simulate? Death. That's all man's come up with, is create death. We can't create life. Only God can do that. Isn't science wonderful? Now I got a question. Why do they continue to teach known wrong information in the textbooks? Why do they continue to teach that? Well, I'm going to illustrate why they do that. In order to illustrate why they continue to teach known wrong information, I'm going to need to exercise my spiritual gift here tonight. And I'm going to let you know right away, my spiritual gift is not mercy. I'll let you know that right away. Because I have a very unique spiritual gift. It's called creating anxiety in other people. And I'm going to exercise that here tonight. And here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you a math problem. Some of you have already got anxiety right there. It's a math problem. Now I'm going to give you this math problem, and you all have to have an answer. Why? Because I'm going to call on you. And I'm going to call on you even if you aren't looking at me. Okay. See, I slowed down with this because I enjoy this time. Now, let me give you the math problem. And before you try and answer it, let me qualify with the kind of answers you can give. So here is your math problem. How much is 3 plus 1, and you cannot use the number 4 because I don't like the way it looks. It's a little too religious here, and we're talking science. Now, I want your answer as an exact number. I will not accept 3.9999 repeating. No fingers in the air. Keep your shoes on. Don't want to see your toes. No Roman numerals. And I don't want the words spelled out. If you're multilingual, I want your answer in English. I don't want any math formulas like 10 minus 6 or 2 squared. Again, if you're bilingual, I want English. And if you're one of these computer type people, I want your answer in base 10. Now, you give me a wrong religious answer, guess what the penalty will be? Remember, I was in the Marine Corps. Push-ups, yes, push-ups will be the penalty. And it'll be 20 of them. And I'm such a good mood tonight, I'm going to let you use either arm. How's that sound? So, who has an answer to 3 plus 1 before I just start calling it? Yes, sir. 3 is a correct answer. So I knew where the math people were. I know you. John, you better be careful because you're a mathematician. You don't want to miss this thing. Go ahead. 5, I knew he was a mathematician, yes. And we had another answer back there. Oh, that's 20 push-ups. That's 20, yes. 0 is a correct answer. Now wait a minute. How can all these answers like 3 and 5 and 0 be correct to a simple old problem like 3 plus 1? Well, here's your answer. If you rule the truth out, if you cannot accept the truth, you must accept anything in its place. And that, folks, is what evolutionism is. They've ruled out the truth of a creator God and must put anything in its place, called evolutionism. Anything but the truth. I hope I created a little bit of anxiety out there. Well, let's move on. Hubert Yockey, PhD in physics, in his book, Information Theory, Evolution, and the Origin of Life. He's an evolutionist, incidentally. A great deal of effort has been expended in finding theories for the origin of life without success. Donald Johnson, PhD in chemistry, PhD in computer information science. Matter of fact, this book is out there if you want this book. It's not for beginners, but it is an excellent book. And he makes this statement, 2010. Since there is no known scientific procedure to generate life in the laboratory, let alone by some unknown prebiotic mechanism, one could assume the probability of life from purely physical causes is 0. Jonathan Wells, PhD in molecular and cell biology, he's not a Christian, makes this statement. So we remain profoundly ignorant of how life originated. Instead of being told the truth, we are given the misleading impression that scientists have empirically demonstrated the first step in the origin of life. Whatever happened to good education? It's gone. I'm going to talk later this week called The Second Upper Room. I'm going to explain what happened to our education system. John Aston, PhD in chemistry and professor of biomedical sciences. Dating the origin of life to a time of billions of years ago still doesn't help explain how life could have started from non-living matter. See, throwing billions of years at something doesn't solve anything, folks. When they have to throw millions and billions of years at something, what you're really saying is this: we don't have the observable evidence, but just trust us. That's all it's saying, folks. If scientists are unable to explain the origins of life through naturalistic observational means, then evolution is without a foundation. In other words, it becomes what? A matter of faith again. Why should I accept evolution when you cannot produce the evidence? I already have a faith. Tell me about your faith, and I'll tell you about my faith. See, it's a faith versus faith issue. It is logical and reasonable to believe that God, not unknown events, created life. We have a logical and reasonable faith, not a blind faith, folks. So, the origin of the universe, the Bible has the answer, evolution cannot. The origin of life, the Bible has the answer, evolution does not. Let's look at the origin of dinosaurs. Number 3. Where did the dinosaurs come from? Well, let's ask the right question. See, the common question is, what happened to them? That's the common question. And that's easy. They died, so we don't need to ask someone anymore. The question we really want to ask, the more important one, is where did they come from? Why is that so important? I've been to museums all over the world. You know what I see in the museums? Dinosaur bones. Open up all these books, what I see? Pictures of dinosaurs. What am I not seeing? The hundreds or thousands of transitions that led up to the dinosaurs. Why are they not in the museums? I'm going to show you some of the attempts they've made here. But here's the standard story. Dinosaurs evolved into existence about 220 million years ago and then died out about 65 million years ago. So here's from a website for teachers. How did the first dinosaur get on Earth? And they stayed in there. Dinosaurs evolved from more primitive reptiles about 230 million years ago. Among the earliest known dinosaurs was Eoraptor from Argentina, a dog-sized meat eater 228 million years old. That's not an answer, because that's what Eoraptor looks like, folks. That looks like a dinosaur, doesn't it? I need to see all the transitions that led up to that. I don't want to start with a dinosaur. So that's not an answer. Dinosaurs didn't spring suddenly into existence 200 million years ago, huge, toothy, and hungry for grub. Like all living things, they evolved slowly and gradually from previously existing creatures. In this case, a family of primitive reptiles known as the archosaurs, or ruling lizards. What do those creatures look like there? Dinosaurs. Those are your archosaurs, folks. That's not an answer. I want to see the transition, the real transitions. Dimetrodon, Greek for two measures of teeth, lived about 280 million years ago, extinct about 230 million years ago, about 11 feet long and 500 pounds. This is the one they typically put in the museums. What does that look like? Dinosaur. It's already a reptile, isn't it? Where did the reptiles come from? So they look like dinosaurs. Frank Sherwin, M.A. Zoology. If sauropods evolved, then why are there no fossil pre-sauropods that have at least 2, 3, or 4 of the uniquely sauropod features? Sauropods are your great big 4-footed meat eaters. Why don't we find 3-footed meat eaters? We don't. We don't find any transitions to these large sauropods like Brachiosaurus. Don't find any. The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs, all the way back in 1985. The question of the origin of dinosaurs is one that has puzzled paleontologists for many years. Now, these statements I'm giving here are not allowed in our school textbooks because this is real science. The Natural History Museum of Dinosaurs. Where did dinosaurs come from? That apparently simple question has been the subject of intense debate among scientists for over 150 years. They still don't know. Well, let's go to the Smithsonian Institute now, see what they have to say about this. The discussion over where dinosaurs came from in the first place is often overlooked. Hypotheses of dinosaur origins have been just as controversial as those of triggers of the end Cretaceous mass extinction. That was about 65 million years ago when all the dinosaurs became extinct. In other words, what do those 4 quotes say? We don't know where they came from. Even the Smithsonian Institute admits that, but not the education system. So where did dinosaurs come from? And God made the beasts of the earth according to its kind, and cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So the evening, morning were the sixth day. What day did God create dinosaurs? 6. He made the land animals. And what else did he create on day 6? Man. So what is the Bible teaching out of Genesis chapter 1? Dinosaurs and people lived at the same time. You know what? We have a lot of scientific evidence to support that. Now, I want to caution you here. We do not need scientific evidence to confirm God's word. If that's your thought process, I have to have the scientific evidence, then the Bible is simply not your authority. You do not have a biblical worldview. But in this case, God has given us overwhelming scientific evidence to support what the Bible teaches. Since the 1990s, soft tissue has been found on many, many dinosaurs. And you go on the web, you can see some of this soft tissue. They stretch it, and it just comes right back together again. There is no known method for preserving soft tissue for 65 million years. The evolutionists have come up with some experiments, and they've been able to preserve certain elements for 2 years. Folks, from 2 years to 65 million years is a large extrapolation. It's not good in science. Unfossilized dinosaur bones. Pick these bones up, and they're just light as bones. Proteins in dinosaur fossils. As soon as something dies, proteins are coming apart, folks. Red blood cells in dinosaurs. DNA in dinosaur fossils. Now, DNA has a very short half-life, about 521 years. In other words, every 521 years after something's dead, half the DNA is decomposed. So after at least, we'll give them a maximum of about 10,000 years, there's no DNA left. So why are we finding DNA in these bones? And then there's carbon-14 in dinosaur bones. This is a killer, folks. Carbon-14. Now, why is that so important? Well, carbon-14, it's an atom. There's carbon-12, carbon-13, carbon-14. Carbon-14 is the only one we're going to talk about. And carbon-14 is actually not natural to our atmosphere. We have these things coming down from outer space called cosmic rays, come down with tremendous force and intensity, can blow an atom apart. But the end result is some of the nitrogen in our atmosphere gets converted or changed into carbon-14. For those of you who like a little more detail, it's a proton-neutron change that happens in there. So some of the nitrogen gets converted into carbon-14. Carbon-14 combines with oxygen, so we get carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide gets taken in by the plants. We eat it and we breathe it, so we all have carbon-14 in us. Now, carbon-14, something interesting about it. It's an unstable atom or isotope. Now, I just said something very profound there. You have carbon-14 in you. Carbon-14 is unstable, so what does that make you? Unstable, yes. See, now you have a scientific reason for acting the way you do. It's your carbon-14 in you making you do these things. Now, what we mean by unstable, and this might even scare you worse, it's radioactive. Anybody glowing at night? Not to worry, there's very little of this in the atmosphere, a little of this in you. It just means that over time it changes back into nitrogen. So the full life cycle of carbon-14, start with the nitrogen atom, some of those get converted into carbon-14, then carbon-14 over a period of time changes back into nitrogen. In that period of time, we measure in half-lives, which is about 5,730 years for the half-life of carbon-14. Now, I have a question. Anybody want to answer it? Yes, okay. Very good. See, I do things a little different. I'm not going to ask the question until I get a volunteer. You're going to wish you volunteered. This young man's going to outdo you all. When we die, do we continue to eat or breathe? Good, good. See, it was pretty easy, wasn't it? Aren't you glad you volunteered? You outdid all these other people here. So once you're dead, you're no longer taking carbon-14 in you because you're not eating or breathing. But the carbon-14 that was in you continues to decay out. And we estimate after about 80,000 years, all the datable carbon-14 is gone. You can't date it anymore. Therefore, if we were to find a fossil that had no carbon-14 in it, what could we assume? It's older than 80,000 years. But if we find a fossil that still has carbon-14 in it, what can we assume? It's less than 80,000 years. Yeah, less than 80,000 years old. So why are we finding carbon-14 in dinosaurs all over the world when they're supposed to have died out 65 million years ago? We're finding, okay, that's the typical thing. Contamination. We can rule that one out right away, folks. Why? Because if it was contamination, we'd find varying amounts of carbon-14, and that's not what we're finding. We're finding close to the same amount of carbon-14 in all these dinosaurs, which means looks like they all died out at the same time. Now, what would do that? Just as a thought. A flood, yes. Just like the Bible teaches. They all died out about the same time because we find carbon-14 and dinosaurs all over the world. Isn't science wonderful? True science is wonderful, not evolution. So dinosaurs created on day 6 by God. If scientists are unable to produce the thousands of transitions for the origin of dinosaurs, then evolution is simply without a foundation. It becomes a matter of faith again. Why shall I accept evolution when you cannot produce the evidence? I already have a faith. Tell me about your faith, and I'll tell you about my faith. See, again, we have a logical and reasonable faith, and not some unknown events that created the dinosaurs. So, origin of the universe, the Bible has the better answer. Origin of life, the Bible has the answer. Origin of dinosaurs, the Bible has the answer. Now I want to go to the power question. Just a power question. And here's your power question. Show me any observational evidence for evolution that does not require me to use faith. That's a pretty powerful question. 2 key words in there, observational and faith. That's all you really need to remember. Then you can wrap your own words around it. Show me any observational evidence for evolution that does not require me to use faith. Let's take a look at this. Is evolution a fact? Did anybody observe the Big Bang? No. Anybody ever observe a galaxy or a star evolve into existence? No. Anybody observe the origin of life through naturalistic means? No. Has anyone observed one creature evolve into a new creature? No. Has anyone observed long ages creating a canyon? No, we just conjecture, we just extrapolate there, but we have seen canyons form rapidly, haven't we? No one's observed millions of years. That's a pretty powerful question then. In other words, what I'm training you to do here tonight is not get in all these discussions about all the scientific evidences, but stick to the foundations. The foundations. See, when somebody brings up the humans having evolved from ape-like creatures, I'm not going to get into all the fossil evidence, folks. Don't need to. Because I can take care of it by saying, what was your mechanism for the change? Go to the foundations. Their mechanisms are mutations and natural selection. First of all, no known mutation has ever added new genetic information. That's a killer right there. And then the whole idea of natural selection is non-existent. I was in a recent discussion, debate with a couple of atheists, and they brought up natural selection. For half an hour, I asked them, give me a good definition of natural selection that agrees with your evolution model. And by the way, tell me who your selector, your intelligence is that does the selecting there. For a half hour, they couldn't give me a good definition. See, they don't have one. What is natural selection and how does it work? And could you tell me who or what is the intelligence behind doing the selecting? They can't do that. Go after the foundations. That's what we're trying to teach our youth. Then you don't have to know all these things that your instructor might have some new fossil they found. But if there's no mechanism for change, it's over, folks. So evolution is simply a matter of faith. It is not a fact. It is not a theory. See, the Bible does have the answers. Who created, what was created, how it was created, when it was created, and how long it took to create. We have the answers. So, 2 questions about all this. Who's going to train the next generation? Right now, it's not the church. Don't count on the church folks to do any training. And what will they be trained to believe? Right now, it's going to be evolution. Because our Christian universities aren't helping us much either, folks. And our churches are dormant on this. They haven't responded, most of them. There's a few good churches out there. For the most part, they forgot about training. I'm going to show you what we're doing at Creation Training Initiative. We're a unique creation organization. We offer one-day training classes. This gets you started. Now, I like internet training, but it's nowhere near as good as in-person training. We come to your churches to do this training. Full-day classes, 8:30 to 5:30. We charge adults $45, youth, teens, $25. What do you get for that? You get a full day's training. We buy lunch for you, and we feed you snacks, and you get a 100-page manual. We have the basic creation training for teens and above. When teens get done that, their confidence in the Bible is finally restored. Then we have the one-day advanced apologetics, where we hit the tough questions like, show me any evidence for the existence of God. How can you call God good when he allows evil to exist? We answer those questions. That's the number one question why people will not accept Jesus Christ. Is it being taught in the church, though? No, it's not. Then the one we're doing this Tuesday, Christian Educator Conference. I'm doing one here. In a week and a half, we'll be doing one in Wisconsin. This is for anybody who wants to teach, or it could be homeschool educators, Christian school teachers, youth pastors need to be there. It's going to be a good day, 8:30 to 5:30. I start off with make sure we have a biblical worldview. What is Christian education? The last chapter is how to educate for success, because I don't do anything other than educating for success. I don't tolerate failure in Christian education. We should never do that. Then we have our 5-day Creation Apologetics Teachers College. I don't believe there's another course like this anywhere in Christianity. We just finished our 5th year with this one. This year we held it in New Mexico. Next year it's going to be in North Carolina. There's only 2 places in the country we can hold this class. They have to meet our requirements. Next year it's going to be in Ridgecrest, North Carolina, just outside Asheville. August 12th through the 17th. Mark these dates, folks, because when you're done this course, you're ready to teach and speak and defend your faith. No other course in Christianity will do what this course does. Ridgecrest Conference Center, we're only going to take 40 students. This year we had a full house. We had 40 students plus 10 returning students. We have students keep returning to this year after year because they've never seen anything like this before. This is Marine Corps style training, folks. You're in the classroom 8 to 10 hours a day. You have to do 2 5-minute presentations. I said 5 minutes, not more. This year we had one person go 0.3 of a second over 5 minutes and took a point off their grade. That's what makes it really hard for pastors now. This year we had medical doctors, engineers, physicists, and college students, just lay people come. This year was a great year. We had 12 students that were 22 years old or younger. What a great thing. We had the youngsters in there, and they did a dynamite job, folks. They were better than most pastors could do. They all just nailed their presentation. Then you do a 3-minute defense presentation. You're not sure what topic you're going to get, but you have a list of topics. Then you stand up there and we throw the challenge at you. You have 3 minutes or less to give an organized, accurate response. Then you take a written final exam, closed notes, no notes. You're allowed to use your Bible. You get 50 minutes to answer this whole question, this whole test. This was our 5th year. You know what our success rate is over the 5 years? 100%. We don't educate for failure, folks. We educate for success. When you're done, you're an evangelist out there. You're not afraid to go up and talk to people about Jesus Christ because you're not afraid of the questions they're going to ask you. So what does this course cost? $570. We will be offering scholarships. We'll even have an essay scholarship contest. This year we offered 4 or 5 different scholarships were put up by people. So we're always asking if churches would like to sponsor somebody or put a scholarship up for somebody. Because this course will make a difference. At that $570, what do you get? That's the cost of the course. You get a 350-page manual. We cover every page in there in the 5 days. It covers all your lodging. Your lodging are not bunk beds, folks. These are private rooms, private bath, like a hotel. Very nice rooms. And all your meals. You get 3 good meals a day. That's 15 meals. $570 doesn't even start to cover the cost of this to us. The actual cost to us is over $900 a student. We supplement the rest out of our own ministry. But there will be scholarships, and there'll be people who can write essays, and you get a scholarship that way. So mark that calendar date. Try and get some people there. It's a great conference center. There are 3 instructors there. One is myself. I'm the mean one. The other 2 are nice to average it out. Both are pastors. One pastor, Jay Lucas, he's an excellent debater. He's debated the president of American Atheists. He's written books on apologetics. The other pastor is out of Idaho. He's a New Testament Greek scholar. And not only can he teach, but he's got a good sense of humor and has fun doing it. Both have incredible knowledge. So you get all of that. And now, let me tell you what we're doing next. I'm tired of hearing this. We're losing over 60% of our youth. Because the church isn't going to do anything about it. Our Christian universities aren't going to do anything about it. So here's how we handle this, folks. We'll do it ourselves. Our ministry has taken on this challenge. We have a major building project we're working on right now, and we've already started on this. We're doing 2 separate curricula here. Christian educators curriculum. We're developing 2 3.5-day courses on biblical creation and apologetics. Why is this? Because studies have now shown that over 50% of our Christian school teachers do not have a biblical worldview. And I went around asking teachers, Christian school teachers around the country, and the majority of them said, we'd love to learn how to answer the questions from our students. This will do that, folks. We're going to look at Christian school teachers, homeschool educators, and youth pastors who generally don't touch the subject. We did meet one this week already. That is a good one. He's on fire about this subject, folks. He's already been doing it, some of it. So there are some good youth pastors out there that have some knowledge. And here's the deal. We will come to you to do these courses so you don't have to worry about travel monies. You can go home at night, generally. We're going to fund a lot of this. We're working, trying to get donors that will fund this because this is too important, folks. We need to get the infrastructure trained. We have the youth pastors out there and the Christian school teachers. They're in an extremely valuable position, but they just haven't been trained on this issue. And we're going to do that job. Then we have our biblical worldview and apologetics curriculum. Out of that, we're going to build master teachers and master apologists, top-level apologists out of there. There will be 8 courses involved in this, communication and teaching skills. We're not going to let anybody get by unless they attend this course. The first offering that course will be this November, the end of November in Boise. In there, it'll be a 3-day course. About half the course will be lecture, but the other half, you're going to have to get up there and show us you know how to teach, you know how to speak coherently. And you're going to keep doing it until you get it right. We're not going to take boring, dull, monotonous folks. We want people who can stand up there and engage an audience and keep them on the edge of their seats for an hour at a time. If not, you won't pass this course. We're looking for master teachers out there. Master teachers who can train other teachers how to teach. It's called discipleship, folks. A lost art in the church. We don't want to own this. We want to get it all over the country. Then establishing a biblical worldview. You see, these courses are going to be at least 3 days long. And every one of these courses, you're going to have to demonstrate you can do this because we're going to put you up in front of us and challenge you with all kinds of questions. And we're going to cover biblical apologetics, science and the Bible, evolution, the Bible. Why is it true and who is Jesus? Got to cover those things. Moral issues, sanctity of human life, marriage between one man and one woman. How many races are there? Witnessing. Witnessing to who? The cults. You'll learn how to do that. And then the last one, the practicum. That's going to be your final exam, folks. It's going to be like that, 3 days. We're going to put you in some of the toughest situations you're going to get in. Because some of the people I'm working with, they do this, and I've been there. Go to New York City. Get out on the streets and watch the gangs come around you. 6, 7, 8 people all at once, firing questions off at you simultaneously. Can you handle that? That's what we're going to train you for. The toughest situation you're going to be in. And you'll be ready to be a true evangelist when you're done. And you won't be afraid to go out there and challenge anybody. Master apologists, master teachers. If you want more information, go to our website. We have a lot of free videos out there, over 80 30-minute videos for free. We have short 5-minute videos we've been doing, such as, is the Bible outdated? How can the first 3 days of creation be days if the sun wasn't created until day 4? What about the 2% difference between us and apes in our DNA? And we have an 8-minute one on how to teach the gospel, because it's not being done in most churches. They're giving a very superficial explanation for the gospel. You see, the gospel starts in Genesis 1:1. If you don't get that, folks, you don't understand the gospel. So it's an 8-minute one with a lot of graphics. All these 5-minute ones, I'm on the screen very little, but there's a lot of graphics that go on to help explain what's going on there. So those are all free on our website. And then we have explanations for our courses that we offer. So that's what we're doing with Creation Training Initiative. We're taking the initiative to go on the offense. We're not going to stand still. We want to change this next generation. I've already held a youth pastor conference in Boise, and guess what? There was no entertainment and there was no loud music, and they came. We did it. I spent 2.5 years building these relationships. It was a short one, and we brought them in for free. We had food catered in from one of the best restaurants in Boise, and their wives came for free also. You know what? I had 2 churches volunteer to pay all the cost. We've got something going in Boise I don't think any other cities have it. And I told those youth pastors, here's our goal. We want to make Boise the #1 city in the country that has the lowest level of youth leaving the church. Right now it's over 60%. We're going to have the lowest. We've already got the next youth pastor conference scheduled for next year. We've got some key people coming in to present also. We developed a formula that these youth pastors loved. We had 3 youth do 5-minute presentations on what they've had to go up against. Then I had another youth pastor give a talk. And he was not a typical youth pastor, he was a mature youth pastor. He's already got his PhD. Then I had another top evangelist come in. And he talked for 15 minutes and mesmerized these people. He's the type of person that goes to New York City and does these things. You know what he said to these people? Over 80% of the questions he gets are about creation evolution. We're building evangelists. We need support to do this. We need your support to do this. We have cards out there that you can help us support us. We do need that because we're moving ahead with that. And I'm working with several people right now to get this thing funded. So it is an important issue for us. If you want to help us take part, we have meetings once a month with a group of people to design this curriculum. I have luncheons once a month where we get together and with pastors and other things. Now I'm one of the people in Boise that gets invited to all the pastors' conferences, and I'm the only civilian there. They just invited me to a golf thing for all the pastors there. I said, I've never played golf in my life, and I just embarrass everybody. So they said, why don't you just come for the food then? I said, sure, that sounds great to me. But that's what we're doing, folks. We're out to make a difference. We're not going to stand still. And we're bringing the people from around the country into this. So now I'm going to open up. Heinz, you want to add some more to what you? We'll have a Q&A time if we have some time there.
Okay, let's give Mike a hand for that presentation. And we will take some time for Q&A, but also remind you that we support this ministry through free will offerings. So if you care to support, the men will come around in a few minutes to pass a plate. And there's also donation boxes on the back table if you'd rather do that as well. So put up your hand if you have a question you'd like to ask Mike.
Well, you're asking, also, we have a table back there. It's by itself. All the DVDs are $5. The books are $10. And if you don't have that, $8 will do, $4 will do. We're not here to get anything on it. We just want to get the information out. So the DVDs are suggested price $5, books suggested price $10.
Okay, so raise your hand if you have a question. And while Mike is answering this question, put up your hand for the next one.
Mike, you've sort of alluded to it, but the maximum that a largest element that the created in the sun would be iron because it doesn't get any more energy. It seems to me there's a big problem there generating heavy elements, and so the newest announcement of we've seen a a neutron star that's collided and created heavy elements. That doesn't seem to solve the problem.
No. The question is, the heaviest element to be created by the stars would be iron because it doesn't do anymore. Where did all the other heavier elements come from? They've tried to simulate this in the labs, but it doesn't work right. So where did all the heavy elements come from? They can't very well explain that. And it has something to do with the population 3 stars that are missing. There's a big problem there. In other words, the Big Bang does not account for what we see out there in the universe very well. Thank you, John. That was good information. We had a question back there.
Mike, let's do it in order.
Okay.
You mentioned that carbon-14 deteriorates after 80,000 years. How do we know that empirically?
Okay, how do we know that empirically? Okay, here's what we do. We never know when an atom is going to decay. We just don't know. So what we do is we take a population of carbon-14 atoms, see how long it takes some of that to decay, and we run the experiment over and over and over again, get a pretty consistent answer, and then we extrapolate back to how long would it take all of it to decay. So there is an extrapolation in there. We think we're pretty accurate on that one, because it seems we get a consistent decay rate there over a short period of time. So if we're off, we're not off by much. In other words, we say the half-life of carbon-14 is 5,730 years, plus or minus 30 years. So we don't think we're too far off. So we're not saying anything's that old. It's just there is an extrapolation involved.
I know you had mentioned that in the physical world there's no life or anything like that, but we do know from the Bible that there's a spiritual world.
Yes.
Do you ever, in any of your training, go into that Satan's the deceiver, and you know, with the new thing with alien abductions and all this other
Yes.
activity.
Yes, I do. I have a whole talk called Aliens, UFOs in the Bible. And I do go into the spiritual aspect when I do a talk on what is information and where does it come from. Because information is non-material. And if we can create, and something material cannot create something non-material, therefore if we can create information, there has to be a non-material component to us called spirit. Boy, was that heavy talk.
About the Big Bang Theory, there's something that I'd like to add. Does the fact that some textbooks claim that a speck the size of a period exploded, does that also show that that the Big Bang Theory does not show how nothing becomes something?
Very good. I like that. Very good. What he's saying there is, it depends on which book you read, but we start off with this ball of matter, some about the size of a period or a pea or basketball. They don't know there. But from that little speck, it suddenly started expanding into a hot fireball, and from that came everything we see in the universe. Well, that's pretty wild, folks. But first of all, where did that little speck come from? They never answer that question, do they? It's, oh, it created itself. No, can't do that. Always existed? No. So, very good. Yeah, I like that.
Hi. The question that I asked you before, Ken Ham and I had a debate which Ken Ham lost, and I think he lost it on but he really fell down on the amount of time represented down in Antarctica by the ice. So how do you approach the ice problem in Antarctica?
Okay, the ice problem, because the evolutionists say it takes a long period of time to lay all these layers down. Well, the quick answer I give is we found a World War II plane buried very deep in the ice core. Couldn't have taken that long. There wasn't enough time to bury it that fast. And we've also shown that in one season we can get multiple layers. We've actually seen that happen, multiple layers. So their idea of one layer over a season is not true. Then the oxygen levels we find there do not agree with what they're saying. So those are the things I would go into right away. But the airplane one is a real good one. It just causes doubt right there. And then the fact that more than one layer a year, kind of like tree rings. They always say tree rings, we get more than one ring a year in a lot of cases, depending on the weather conditions. So if they're using tree rings to calibrate carbon-14, we got a problem, don't we? So I'd just give a very simple answer there. We can go into the oxygen thing that gets into the details, the O3 and the different types of oxygen we find in there. But it does not agree with what they're saying. We had okay. No one's asked me about my grandchildren yet.
Not me yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so this thing. So the question that I had was, I had it raised by a pastor. He says, so, well, you know, you can know all this stuff and you can debate all this stuff, but does a person have to believe all this stuff to become a Christian? That was the question. Mm-hmm. And then my comment is, I don't see how, this is a side comment after he walked away, because I don't see how he can remain a Christian. But I would like to hear your perspective.
Okay. Do you have to be a Christian to believe all this? Not initially. No, you don't. Because when I became a Christian, I didn't believe it, right? I was still an evolutionist. And I was 30 years old when I became a Christian. I still believe in evolution. But not very long time, because I went out and started asking questions. So be careful how you answer that question. Now, the problem comes here. A lot of churches aren't teaching. And a lot of churches have already compromised with the world. So we have a lot of people sitting in churches believing they're Christians, and there's a number of them that are Christians. There's also a lot of false conversion. Once you are taught, there is no excuse. I don't think there's any excuse, because you can show right away you don't have a biblical worldview. Why? Because it deals with the gospel of Jesus Christ. You see, if you're believing in millions of years, folks, then what was going on for those millions of years before Adam and Eve and the fall? What was happening? Death, called the fossil record of dead things. That is teaching death before sin. And we have a major problem. Your worldview is not a biblical worldview, which almost says are you really walking the Christian walk? Because there's, excuse me, four major problems with believing in millions of years. Four major problems with using science to interpret the Bible. Number one, if you're using science to interpret the Bible, especially Genesis chapter 1, the length of time, that means for 1,800 years nobody knew what the Bible really said until we got to our modern age. That's an arrogant statement right there to make. Only we new scientists today have the answer. All those people who lived before us didn't know what the Bible taught. That's pretty arrogant. Number two, if you're using modern science to interpret God's Word, then you come to a very illogical conclusion. Because 50 years from now, we're going to have new science, aren't we? That means we'll have to reinterpret the Bible. 50 years after that, we have new science. We're going to have to reinterpret the Bible. So the logical conclusion is if you're using modern science to interpret the Bible, we can never know for sure what the Bible has to say. Number three, Mormonism. New revealed information. Reinterpret the Bible. Jehovah's Witness. New revealed information. New way to interpret the Bible. Scientology. New way to interpret the Bible. New information. Islam. New information. New way to interpret the Bible. Modern scientist. New way to interpret the Bible because new revealed information. What does that put the theistic evolution in a role of? The same as the other cults, isn't it? They're using new revealed information to reinterpret the Bible. And then finally, if you are using modern science to interpret the Bible, then I have a question for you. Do you believe the resurrection? Because you have no reason to. Because according to known modern science, you can't be dead for 3 days and come back to life. So you have no reason to believe the resurrection anymore, and you're still dead in your sins. Or else you're willing to be double-minded right here, folks. Believe this miracle, but not that one. Folks, Jesus Christ is the one that came up out of that grave, and Jesus Christ is the one who called it into existence. Why do you deny him on one and not the other? You're inconsistent. There's 4 reasons theistic evolutionists have a real serious problem with the Bible. And can you be a Christian? Yes, you can, but once you're taught, you better start thinking seriously about the Bible.
Okay, well, let's thank Mike for answering these questions. He'll be available afterwards as well.
You grandchildren.
And if okay, well, let's bring this to a close now. He's got other grandchildren too. You can ask about that afterwards. But if you had some other questions and you want to get more answers, remember we do have that youth night, and there's a flyer out back. That's at First Baptist Church in Arlington. You can find all the details on the flyer. And, of course, also on the website. Just look for that event. And the other event I want to, again, remind you of, next Tuesday, there's a Christian Educators Conference at Grace Academy School, and that's down on 67th Avenue here. Again, there's a flyer in the back with all the information, and on the website as well. Either one will serve that. Like I said, we have 52 registered already. We have room for probably at least 10 more. So it's not too late if you have time and you want to really get into this in some more detail. Feel free to register for that on the website. So again, to remind you, there are other flyers for upcoming events on the back table there, and lots of information there. Pick up a flyer if you're interested. There's a trifold on Apologetics forum for more information. And of course, all of that is on the website as well. I want to remind you we have a lending library, and that's on the Apologetics forum book tables out there. If you want to lend a book rather than borrow a book rather than buy a book, you're free to do that as well. There's also a special DVD out there called a Fallout DVD, which is a CMI, Creation Ministries International. The president interviews students on the university campuses and asks them, why did you walk away from the faith? And that's very enlightening. You might want to know about that. You know, we're trying to address that 60% problem that Mike mentioned earlier. And it's just a 25-minute DVD, and it's free, but if you do pick it up, you have to promise to listen to it, to watch it, and when you finish watching it, pass it on to somebody else so we can get the message out there. For those of you, or those that are not here, of course, you want to tell people about things about the Apologetics Forum. We do have an archive of all the lectures given here. They are recorded on our website, and so you can always listen to them there as well, along with the PowerPoint slides. Okay, so next month we have another speaker who we have never had here before, and this is a Professor Andy McIntosh from the UK. Some of you have heard him talk before, but not too many. He's from the UK, so he speaks a little funny, but I think you'll be able to understand him just fine. So he is a retired scientist with a doctorate degree in thermodynamics, and as you'll see up there, he's written a lot of papers and articles, technical papers in the secular writing. So he's well written, and the topic he's going to speak about is flight in birds. How can birds fly? How do you explain like the hummingbird? How can it just hover there and still accomplish its goals? And a lot of things about birds that you just have never heard about before. So he's going to be here from September the 26th, which is a Wednesday, through to the 30th, which is a Sunday, so for 5 days. And then he's also going to actually be here for October 1st and 2nd, the Monday and Tuesday. And so if you look on our website, look under speaker availability, you'll see where he will be speaking, where he's already assigned to speak, but there's still some openings. So if your church has an interest in having us speak at your church, look at that website, that web page, and see when he's available. So again, flyers on all these upcoming events are available on the back table, and of course also on our website. So we're going to break now, and avail yourself of the resource tables out there. There's 3 of them. Mike has a table out there which he explained. We have the Apologetic Forum book tables, and we have